The great chamber floated in space above the planet Viridian Prime. Inside, 7 different alien species sat in a circle. They were the Galactic Council, the leaders who kept peace across thousands of star systems. The room was huge, with walls made of clear crystal that showed the stars outside. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing maps and data from across the galaxy. Admiral Vex Thor stood at the center. He was a krill, a species that looked like walking armor. His body was covered in dark metal plates that had grown naturally over millions of years of evolution. His eyes glowed red as he looked at the human woman standing across from him. The krill were known as the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their fleets protected most of the civilized worlds. The human was named Asha Klein. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth symbol on the shoulder. She was small, compared to most of the aliens in the room. Some of them were 3 times her size, but she stood straight and calm, not showing any fear. "The human requests membership in our defense alliance," Senator Quallen said. The senator was a Mindari, a species with 4 arms and skin that changed colors when they talked. Right now, the senator's skin showed patterns of doubt. Several council members made sounds of amusement. One of them, a floating blob of gas held together by an energy field, actually laughed. The sound came out like wind through bells. "Humans achieved faster than light travel only 50 years ago," Vex Thor said. His voice was deep and sounded like grinding metal. "My species has been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. What could they possibly offer us?" Asha didn't move. She had expected this. Earth had only just joined the galactic community. To these ancient species, humans were children playing with toys they barely understood. "We offer fresh perspective," Asha said, "and capabilities you might find useful." "Capabilities?" Vex Thor stepped closer. He was twice her height. "Little human. My people were genetically perfected for war before your planet had developed language. We have armor that grows from our bones. Our reflexes are 50 times faster than yours. We see in 12 different light spectrums. What capabilities could your soft, weak species possibly have?" The other council members watched carefully. Some seemed curious. Others looked bored. Asha took a breath. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than words. This got their attention. Senator Qualin's skin flashed bright yellow, which meant surprise. Even Vex's Thor seemed interested. "A demonstration?" the senator asked. "What do you propose?" "A combat test," Asha said. "Your fleets against one of our ships. In the neutral zone. Standard engagement rules." The room went silent. Then Vex Thor began to laugh. It was a terrible sound, like rocks breaking. Other council members joined in. "One human ship against our fleets?" Vex Thor could barely speak through his laughter. "This is your proposal?" "Yes," Asha said quietly. "This is suicide," another council member said. This one was a Torvan, a species that looked like birds but stood upright. "We cannot allow this. It would be slaughter." "We accept the risk," Asha said. "Do you accept the challenge?" Vex Thor stopped laughing. His red eyes focused on Asha. For a moment, something like respect crossed his face. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human. I have not decided which." "Perhaps both," Asha said with a small smile. Senator Qualin held up one of their 4 hands. "This is highly irregular. The Council has never tested a new species this way." "Then perhaps it's time for something new," Asha said. "You asked what we can offer. Let us show you." Instead of telling you, the council members looked at each other. Silent communications passed between them through technology and telepathy that humans didn't have. Finally, Senator Quallen spoke. "Very well. We will agree to this test. 7 battle groups will be assembled. This represents the full might of our combined military forces. 340 ships total. They will meet your single vessel in Sector 447 of the neutral zone in 3 days. We'll be there, Asha said. What is the name of your ship? Vexthor asked. I want to know what to put on its memorial. Liberty's Edge, Asha said. Commanded by Captain Jake Morrison. I will personally lead our fleets, Vexthor said. I want to be there when your captain surrenders. If he is smart, he will surrender immediately. My weapons can turn his ship to dust in seconds. Perhaps, Asha said. Or perhaps, you'll be surprised. Humans do not surprise Krill. Vexthor said coldly. We have fought wars across 1,000 worlds. We have defeated enemies you cannot imagine. Your species still fights with chemical explosives and metal bullets. You are primitives playing at being warriors. Asha smiled again, but this time there was something else in her expression. Something that made a few of the council members uncomfortable, though they didn't know why. 3 days then, she said. Sector 447. We'll see you there. She turned and walked toward the exit. The council members watched her go. Most of them were already thinking about other things. This would be brief and one-sided. The human ship would be disabled in minutes, maybe seconds. Then they could move on to real business. But Senator Quallen watched Asha leave with their color-changing skin showing patterns of uncertainty. Something about the humans' confidence bothered them. Humans were new to the galaxy. Ask Spyton, N7. They should be afraid. They should be hesitant. Instead, this ambassador walked like someone holding a secret. Senator, you look troubled, Vexthor said. Perhaps I am overthinking this, Quallen said. But that human seemed very certain of something. Certain of defeat. Vexthor said. Let them have their pride for 3 more days. Then we will teach them the reality of galactic power. The council meeting ended. Messages were sent across the galaxy. 7 different species began gathering their war fleets. Commanders checked weapons and shields. Soldiers prepared for battle. Observation platforms were built in the neutral zone so thousands of citizens could watch the engagement. Bets were being placed across hundreds of worlds. The question wasn't whether the human ship would lose. The question was how quickly it would happen. Some bet on 30 seconds. Others said 2 minutes at most. A few optimistic souls bet on 5 minutes. None of them bet on the humans winning. In her quarters on the observation station, Asha Klein sent a message back to Earth. It was short and simple. They accepted, proceeding as planned. The reply came back, just as short. Good hunting. Asha looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Liberty's Edge was already moving towards Sector 447. She wondered what the council members would think in 3 days. She wondered if they would finally understand. Humans had survived on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They had fought each other for thousands of years and learned from every battle. They had built weapons and strategies that these comfortable, peaceful species had forgotten were possible. In 3 days, the galaxy would learn something new about humanity. And it would only take 4 minutes. 3 days passed quickly. The neutral zone was a region of space set aside for exactly this purpose. It was far from any inhabited planets. Empty, except for rocks and ice. Now, it was filling up with ships. The galactic fleets arrived first. They came through portals in space, their faster-than-light engines creating brief tears in reality. Each species had their own design. The Krill ships were dark and angular, covered in weapons. The Mindari flew vessels that looked like flowers made of metal. The Torvan used ships with wings, even though wings meant nothing in space. It was tradition for them. 340 ships arranged themselves in a massive formation. They spread out across thousands of kilometers, creating a wall of metal and energy. Each ship powered up their weapons and shields. Lights flickered across hulls as computers ran final checks. This was the largest fleet, assembled in peacetime, in over a century. On his flagship, the Eternal Hammer, Admiral Vexthor stood on the command deck. The ship was 3 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons and missile tubes. It had led the Krill to victory in 100 battles. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. They moved with the efficiency of a species bred for war. "All ships report ready," one of his officers said. The officer was younger but already covered in the thick armor plating that marked an adult Krill. "We await the human vessel." We await the human vessel. How generous of us to wait, Vex Thor said. Scan the area. Observation platforms hung at a safe distance. Thousands of galactic citizens had come to watch. Holographic cameras recorded everything. This would be broadcast across the civilized worlds. Some came because they were curious about humans. Most came because they expected a show. It wasn't every day you saw a species make such a spectacular mistake. On one of the platforms, Senator Quallen stood with Asha Klein. The senator's skin showed nervous patterns of orange and green. "Ambassador, it is not too late to withdraw," Quallen said quietly. "No one would think less of your people. Courage is admirable, but this is beyond courage. This is sacrifice." Asha stood watching the gathered fleets. She wore the same blue uniform. Her face was calm. "The ship will arrive soon." "One ship against 340, Quallen said. "Ambassador, I have studied military tactics for 600 years. There is no strategy, no weapon, no technology that can overcome those odds." "Perhaps," Asha said. "We'll know soon enough." Space rippled. Every sensor on every ship detected it at once. Something was coming out of faster than light travel. The spot was right in the center of the designated combat zone, exactly where it should be. A ship appeared. Liberty's Edge emerged from the portal in space. The ship was small compared to the massive dreadnoughts of the galactic fleet. It was only 800 meters long, shaped like a blade or an arrow. The hull was a dark gray that seemed to absorb light. There were no obvious weapons ports, no massive engine arrays. It looked almost plain. Vex Thor stared at the ship on his display screen. "That is their warship? Scans confirm it is military class," his tactical officer said. "But Admiral, the readings are strange. The hull composition is unknown. We cannot identify their power source. Their weapons signature is minimal, because they have no real weapons," Vex Thor said. "This is an insult. They send us their outdated technology and expect us to be impressed." His communication officer spoke up. "Incoming transmission from the human ship." "Put it on," Vex Thor commanded. The screen changed to show a human man. He appeared to be in his 40s, with short, dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a uniform similar to Asha's, but with more symbols on it. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was visible. It looked efficient and clean, with crew members working at various stations. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Liberty's Edge," the man said. His voice was steady. "We are in position and ready for the engagement test." Vex Thor leaned forward. "Human Captain, I am Admiral Vex Thor of the Krill Imperium. I command the assembled fleet before you. This is your last opportunity to withdraw. You face overwhelming force. There is no shame in recognizing reality." Jake Morrison smiled slightly. "Thank you for the concern, Admiral. But we're here to demonstrate our capabilities, not to retreat." "So be it," Vex Thor said. "When you surrender, signal on all channels. I will allow your crew to evacuate before we disable your ship." "Noted," Jake said. "Though, I don't think that will be necessary." The transmission ended. On Liberty's Edge, Jake turned to his crew. The bridge was smaller than the massive command centers of the galactic ships, but every station was manned by focused professionals. "Kate, what do our scans show?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Kate Brooks sat at the tactical station. She was younger than Jake, with blonde hair tied back. Her fingers moved across her controls, pulling up data. 340 ships confirmed. 7 different classes. They're using standard formation pattern Delta 7. Shields are up on all vessels. Weapons are charged but not locked on yet. Ben, how's our reactor? Jake asked. Commander Ben Hayes was at the engineering station. He was a big man with calloused hands, looking more like a mechanic than a starship officer. Running smooth, Captain. We're at 15% capacity. Plenty of room to work with. Lisa, weapons check, Jake said. Lisa Grant sat at the weapons console. She was focused and precise, already running through sequences. Railguns loaded and calibrated. Torpedoes ready in tubes. 1 through 12. Pulse weapon is charged and standing by. All systems green. Ryan, you ready to fly? Jake asked. The pilot, Ryan Porter, grinned. He was the youngest on the bridge, barely 30. But his hands rested on the controls like they were part of his body. Born ready, sir? These aliens have no idea what this ship can do. Let's not get cocky, Jake said, but he was smiling. Amy, open a channel to the council officiator. Amy Chen at communications nodded. Channel open, sir. A Mindari official appeared on screen. This one wore official robes and carried a datapad. Captain Morrison, I am officiator Dalvin. I will oversee this engagement. The rules are as follows. Full weapons free. Combat continues until one side is completely disabled or surrenders. Are these terms acceptable? Acceptable, Jake said. The Galactic Fleet confirms as well, Dalvin said. When I give the signal, you may begin. Are both sides ready? On the Eternal Hammer, Vexthor nodded. We are ready. Ready, Jake confirmed. Dalvin raised one of their 4 arms. The watching crowds fell silent. On 1,000 worlds, beings stopped what they were doing to watch their screens. This was it, the moment humanity would learn its place in the galactic order. Begin, Dalvin announced. Immediately, the Galactic Fleet opened fire. 340 ships launched their attacks at once. Plasma bolts streaked through space, brilliant blue and green. Missiles spiraled toward Liberty's edge, leaving trails of light. Energy beams crossed the distance in fractions of a second. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Everyone watching waited to see the human ship explode. But Liberty's edge didn't explode. The plasma bolts passed right through the ship as if it wasn't there. The missiles flew through the hull and came out the other side. Their targeting systems confused. The energy beams touched nothing but empty space. On the observation platform, Senator Quallen's skin flashed white with shock. Impossible. What is this? Asha allowed herself a small smile. Phase technology. The ship exists slightly out of sync with normal space. Your weapons can't touch it. No. On the Eternal Hammer. Vex Thor's eyes went wide. His tactical officer was frantically checking sensors. Admiral, our weapons are having no effect. The ship is somehow avoiding all damage. Recalibrate, Vex Thor ordered. All ships, concentrate fire on their position. But Jake Morrison was already speaking to his crew. His voice was calm, almost casual. Well, we've seen their opening move. Kate, pick your targets. Lisa, return fire. Precision shots only. We're here to disable, not destroy. Aye, Captain, both women replied. Liberty's edge had been motionless. Now it moved, but it didn't use visible engines. Space around it simply folded, and the ship was somewhere else, kilometers from where it had been. And then the human ship fired back. The railgun spoke first. They didn't use energy or plasma. They used simple physics. Metal slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit the galactic ships, they punched through shields, as if the shields weren't even there. 12 ships went dark in the first volley. Their systems overloaded. Hulls breached, but crews alive. On his flagship, Vexthor realized something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't going to be an execution. This was going to be a lesson. And the humans were the teachers. The battle timer showed 1 minute had passed. 12 galactic ships floated dead in space. Their power systems shut down. their crews unharmed but shocked. The remaining ships were trying to adjust their tactics, but nothing in their training had prepared them for this. "All ships, spread out," Vex Thor commanded. "Do not cluster together. Use evasive patterns." But Liberty's Edge was already moving again. Ryan Porter's hands danced across the controls. The ship didn't fly like normal vessels. It appeared in one place, disappeared, and reappeared somewhere else entirely. It was using micro-jumps. Tiny, faster-than-light hops that should have been impossible. The calculations alone should have taken hours. Somehow, the human computers were doing it in milliseconds. "Target lock impossible," one of Vex Thor's officers reported. "The ship moves. Before our systems can acquire it." Kate Brooks watched her tactical display aboard Liberty's Edge. The enemy ships were spreading out, trying to surround them. It was a good strategy against a normal opponent. But Liberty's Edge wasn't normal. "Captain, they're attempting an encirclement," she said. "Recommend we deploy countermeasure Echo." "Deploy," Jake confirmed. Something launched from Liberty's Edge. Then another. And another. Within seconds, there were 5 identical ships scattered across the battlefield. Each one looked exactly like Liberty's Edge. Each one moved independently. Each one showed the same power signature. The Galactic Fleet opened fire on all of them. Plasma and missiles filled space. But 4 of the ships were holograms, hard light projections that looked and scanned as real. Only one was the actual vessel. "Which one is real?" Vex Thor demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," his science officer said. "They all register as solid matter. The holographic technology is beyond our ability to penetrate." While the fleet wasted ammunition on ghosts, the real Liberty's Edge fired again. Lisa Grant launched torpedoes from the ship's tubes. These weren't like normal torpedoes. Each one had a small artificial intelligence built in. They learned as they flew. A Mindari ship tried to shoot down an incoming torpedo with its point defense lasers. The torpedo saw the pattern, calculated the timing, and spiraled around the incoming fire. It struck the ship's engine section and detonated. The ship didn't explode. It just went dark, all systems disabled by an electromagnetic pulse. Another torpedo approached a Torvan vessel. The ship released chaff, metal particles meant to confuse sensors. The torpedo ignored the chaff completely. Its AI recognizing the tactic from its programming. It found the real target and shut down another ship. 2 minutes had passed. 50 ships were now disabled. The Galactic Fleet was starting to panic. These weren't warriors used to losing. They were the dominant military forces in the galaxy. They had won every battle they'd fought for generations. This shouldn't be happening. Senator Qualin watched from the observation platform, their skin cycling through colors so fast it was almost white. How is this possible? Humans barely have faster-than-light travel. Where did they learn to fight like this? "We've always known how to fight," Asha said quietly. "We just didn't have the technology to do it in space. Now, we do." On Liberty's Edge, Ben Hayes was monitoring the ship's reactor. "Captain, we're still only at 30% capacity. The ship is barely trying." Jake nodded. They designed Liberty's Edge to fight entire fleets if necessary. This was well within its capabilities. Maintain current power levels. No need to waste energy. After, maintain current power levels. "Captain, the flagship is moving," Kate reported. "The Eternal Hammer is coming directly at us." On his command deck, Vex Thor had made a decision. If technology couldn't beat the humans, maybe simple mass could. The Eternal Hammer was 3 kilometers of armor and weapons. He would ram Liberty's Edge and crush it. "All power to forward shields and engines," he commanded. "We're going through them." The massive Krill dreadnought accelerated. It was like watching a mountain move. Ships scattered out of its path. Vexus Thor's eyes were locked on the human vessel. He would not be humiliated by these primitives. "Sir, the flagship is on collision course," Kate said calmly. "I see it," Jake said. He thought for a moment. The Admiral was brave. He had to give him that. Stupid, but brave. Ben, charge the pulse weapon. Aye, sir, charging now. The pulse weapon was experimental. Earth's scientists had only tested it 3 times. But all 3 tests had been successful. It used principles that the galactic species had never explored. They relied on energy shields and armor. Humans had gone in a different direction. The weapon created a localized field that affected how time moved. Weapon charged, Ben reported. Fire when ready, Jake said. The Eternal Hammer was less than a kilometer away now, closing fast. Vex Thor gripped his command chair. Brace for impact. Liberty's Edge fired. Nothing visible came from the ship. No beam, no projectile. Just a sphere of distorted space that expanded outward. It moved at the speed of light, reaching the Eternal Hammer in microseconds. The effect was immediate and total. The flagship froze. Not stopped, but frozen. It was still moving from an outside perspective, but so slowly it might as well be standing still. The ship was experiencing time at a rate 100 times slower than the rest of the universe. From the crew's perspective aboard the Eternal Hammer, they were still charging forward. But to everyone else, they had become a statue. The pulse continued expanding. It caught ship after ship. 200 vessels were inside the field within seconds. They all froze in place, trapped in slow time. Their crews were fine. Their ships undamaged. They just couldn't do anything. By the time a second passed for them, minutes would pass for everyone else. 3 minutes had passed. Only the rear guard remained free, the ships too far away to be caught by the pulse. These were mostly smaller vessels, scouts, and support craft. They saw what had happened to the main fleet and began to retreat. This was beyond their understanding. This was beyond anything they'd ever faced. The remaining ships are attempting to flee, Kate reported. Ryan, pursue, Jake ordered. Don't let them get too far. We want them to remember this clearly. With pleasure, sir, Ryan said. His hands moved and Liberty's Edge leaped forward. The ship accelerated to speeds that should have turned the crew into paste against the walls. But the inertial dampeners were working at nearly perfect efficiency. Inside the ship, there was barely a sense of movement. Even as they chased down fleeing vessels at impossible velocities, Lisa Grant targeted the fleeing ships carefully. She didn't want to destroy them. The captain had been very clear about that. Disable only. Show strength, but also show mercy. Preparing gravity lance, she said. Hold on, Ben warned. The gravity lance was Liberty's Edge's most powerful weapon. It created a focused beam of gravitational force. Along its path, space itself warped. Anything caught in the beam experienced crushing gravity from all directions at once. Lisa fired. The beam lanced out across space. It caught the fleeing ships one after another. The gravity didn't destroy them. It just stressed their hulls enough to shut down their systems. Emergency protocols kicked in, shutting down reactors to prevent overload. The ships went dark and began to drift. 4 minutes. The last galactic ship went silent. The battlefield was full of disabled vessels. 340 ships, representing 7 species and the combined might of galactic military power, had been completely neutralized by one human ship. In 4 minutes, Liberty's Edge stopped moving. It hung in space, its systems barely taxed, its crew calm and professional. On the bridge, Jake looked at his timer and nodded. All weapons, safe mode, he said. Amy, open a channel to the council. Channel open, sir, Amy confirmed. Jake stood up from his command chair. He straightened his uniform and looked at the camera. His face was serious but not triumphant. He didn't want to gloat. He wanted them to understand. This is Captain Jake Morrison to the Galactic Council, he said clearly. Demonstration complete. All enemy vessels are disabled but intact. All crews are unharmed and will regain control of their ships shortly. We are standing by for further instructions. On the observation platforms, silence reigned. Thousands of beings stared at their screens in shock. This wasn't possible. This violated everything they knew about warfare, about technology, about their place in the universe. Senator Quallen turned to Asha. The senator's skin had settled into a deep blue, the color of profound thought. What have we done? Ah, you challenged us, Asha said simply. We accepted. On the Eternal Hammer, time was slowly returning to normal for Vex Thor and his crew. As the pulse field faded, they began to move at regular speed again. The Admiral's first action was to check his screens. When he saw every ship in his fleet disabled, when he realized what had happened, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. Not fear of the humans themselves. Fear that he had been wrong. Fear that his species had grown weak without realizing it. Fear that the galaxy had become so comfortable in peace that they'd forgotten what real war looked like. And the humans had just reminded them. In 4 minutes, the emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 hours after the battle ended. The chamber that had seemed so grand before now felt different. The council members sat in their places, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Some looked angry. Some looked frightened. All of them looked confused. Admiral Vex Thor stood before them. His armor had scorch marks from the battle, though he hadn't actually been hit by anything. His ship's systems had overloaded when the time pulse wore off. He had insisted on coming to the council meeting immediately, not even taking time to fully repair his flagship. Explain, Senator Quallen said simply. The senator's skin was a dull gray, showing exhaustion and stress. Explain how a species that achieved spaceflight less than a century ago defeated our combined fleets in 4 minutes. Asha Klein stood beside a new human. He wore a different uniform, military dress clothes with ribbons and medals. He was older than Asha, with gray hair and hard eyes. This is Commander Dan Wright, Asha introduced him. He's with Earth's Military Liaison Office. He can answer your questions better than I can. Dan stepped forward. He looked at each council member in turn, then at Vex Thor. With respect, you already know the answer. You just don't want to accept it. Do not speak in riddles, one of the Torven council members snapped. Our fleets were utterly defeated. Ships that have never lost a battle were disabled like toys. Technologies we have never seen were used against us. Explain. Dan took a breath. When was your last war? He asked. The council members looked at each other. Finally, Senator Quallen answered. The Treaty of United Stars was signed 200 years ago. There has been peace since then. 200 years, Dan repeated. That's impressive. Really, it is. But that's also your problem. Peace is not a problem, another council member said. No, peace is wonderful, Dan agreed. But you've had peace for so long. You've forgotten what war looks like. You've forgotten how to fight. You've forgotten what drives military innovation. Vex Thor's eyes narrowed. The Krill have trained for war every day for 200 years. Our soldiers practice combat from childhood. Our ships drill constantly. Training for war isn't the same as fighting one, Dan said. You're practicing moves that worked in your last conflict. You're preparing for the enemy you remember. But warfare changes. Technology advances. Tactics evolve. He walked to the center of the chamber. A holographic display appeared above his hand, showing Earth. Humans achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. That's true. But we didn't stop fighting each other just because we reached the stars. We've been at war for our entire history. Not one war. Thousands of them. This is supposed to impress us? Quallen asked. That your species is violent? Too? No, Dan said. I'm explaining why we think differently. You asked where our technology came from. It came from necessity. Humans didn't evolve natural armor like the Krill, so we learned to build better ships. We didn't develop telepathy like the Mindari, so we built better computers. We didn't have long lifespans like most of you, So we had to work faster, learn faster, adapt faster. The hologram changed, showing various human weapons and technologies. Every technology we use today was developed because we needed it. The phase technology came from trying to avoid detection. The railguns came from needing weapons that didn't rely on energy. The time pulse came from wanting to disable enemies without killing them. Everything was born from problems we had to solve. But your civilization is so young, a council member protested. How could you advance so quickly? Because we had to, Asha said. Admiral Vexthor said it himself. Your species was genetically perfected for war. You have natural advantages. We don't. So we can't rely on what we are. We have to rely on what we build and what we think. Dan nodded. Also, we have something you lost. Perspective. When you've been dominant for thousands of years, you stop questioning your methods. You assume what worked before will work again. You become comfortable. He gestured at Vex Thor. Admiral, your formation when you attacked was pattern Delta 7. It's a standard formation. Very effective against equal opponents. But it assumes the enemy will fight the same way you do. It assumes they'll use energy weapons and shields and conventional tactics. You never considered that we might fight completely differently. Vex Thor was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was quieter than before. You are correct. I assumed you would be weaker versions of us. I assumed your technology would be primitive versions of ours. I never considered that you might have gone in entirely different directions. Exactly, Dan said. You see, the galaxy had peace. That's beautiful. But peace made you all think alike. You trade technology. You share research. You help each other. That's good for society. But it's bad for innovation. Everyone starts using the same solutions because they work well enough. The hologram showed the battle, replaying the 4 minutes in fast motion. Humans didn't have anyone to trade with. We had to figure everything out ourselves. And because we kept fighting each other, we kept trying new things. Different nations tried different approaches. Some failed. Some succeeded. The successful ones survived and improved. You make war sound like a good thing, Quallen said quietly. No, Asha said firmly. War is terrible. The captain of Liberty's Edge, Jake Morrison, lost his brother in a conflict between Earth nations. Our history is full of tragedy. We don't celebrate violence. But we learned from it. We learned what happens when you're not prepared. We learned what happens when you become complacent. 8. Dan pulled up more data. Liberty's Edge isn't even our most advanced ship. It's 15 years old. We have newer designs, better weapons, more sophisticated systems. We sent an older vessel because we wanted to demonstrate capability, not show off our full strength. This caused a stir among the council members. If Liberty's Edge was old technology, what could the humans do with their newest weapons? Are you threatening us? One council member asked, standing up. No, Dan said. Absolutely not. We're trying to help you. Help us? Vex Thor asked. You humiliate our fleets and claim to help? Yes, Asha said. Because you needed to see this. You needed to understand that the galaxy isn't as safe as you think. You've had peace for 200 years. That's wonderful. But peace doesn't last forever. There are threats out there. Old weapons from extinct civilizations. Aggressive species beyond the frontier. Dangers you've forgotten about because you haven't faced them in so long. Dan nodded. We didn't come to conquer you. We came to wake you up. You've become comfortable. Your military has become ceremonial. Your warriors are athletes, not soldiers. That's fine during peace. But what happens when real danger comes? Senator Quallen's skin changed through several colors, finally settling on a thoughtful purple. We're saying you need to remember, Aisha said. Remember that peace requires strength to maintain it. Remember that being unprepared is dangerous. Remember that the universe is bigger and stranger than any of us know. She looked around the chamber. Earth requests full membership in the Defense Alliance. We offer our military expertise, our different perspective, and yes, our technology. Not because we want to rule you, but because we want to make sure everyone stays safe. Including yourselves, Vexthor said. Yes, Asha agreed. We're not saints. We benefit from this too. But it's not a zero-sum situation. We can all be stronger together. The council members talked among themselves for several minutes. Languages mixed together, some spoken, some through technology. Finally, Qualin spoke. You have given us much to think about. This session is adjourned for deliberation. We will vote on humanity's membership tomorrow. As the council members filed out, Vexthor approached Asha and Dan. Up close, he was even more imposing. His red eyes studied them carefully. You fought with honor, he said quietly. You could have destroyed my fleet. Instead, you disabled us. No one died. That shows wisdom. We don't want to kill, Dan said. We want to survive. There's a difference. Vexthor nodded slowly. I underestimated you. I thought you were weak. I was wrong. The question now is, what do we do with this knowledge? Learn, Asha said simply. Learn to think differently again. Learn to question your assumptions. Learn to prepare for threats you haven't imagined yet. And you will teach us? Vexthor asked. If you'll listen, Asha said. The Admiral looked at them for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he bowed his head slightly. It was a gesture of respect among the krill, rarely given to other species. I will listen, he said, and I will make sure others listen as well. You have earned that much. He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing in the chamber. Dan let out a breath. That went better than expected. Don't celebrate yet, Asha said. We still need the vote. Some of them are scared now. Scared people make unpredictable choices. True, Dan said, but we showed them what they needed to see. The rest is up to them. Outside the chamber, across the galaxy, the recordings of the battle were spreading. Everyone had seen it now. The impossible victory. The 4 minutes that changed everything. Humanity was no longer the primitive newcomers. They were something else, something that made the established powers nervous. And that nervousness, Asha hoped, would wake them up before it was too late. 3 months later, the Galactic Defense Academy opened on Earth's moon. The building was huge, a mixture of human and alien architecture. Domes made of materials from 7 different worlds rose from the lunar surface. Inside, beings from across the galaxy walked through corridors designed for different body types and environmental needs. Captain Jake Morrison stood in a classroom, looking out at faces that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Krill warriors sat next to Mindari diplomats. Torvan officers compared notes with human cadets. Species that had barely spoken to each other before were now learning side by side. Good morning, Jake said. The translator devices everyone wore converted his words instantly into dozens of languages. I'm Captain Morrison. Some of you know me from the engagement in Sector 447. Others have only heard the stories. I'm here to teach you something your militaries haven't focused on in a long time. He pulled up a holographic display showing various battle scenarios. I'm here to teach you how to fight. A young krill in the front row raised his hand. His armor was lighter than adult krill, still growing. Captain Morrison, my people have studied war for thousands of years. What can humans teach us that we don't already know? Good question, Jake said. What's your name? Vex Nor. I am the nephew of Admiral Vexthor. Ah, Jake said with a slight smile. Your uncle and I have had some interesting conversations. Let me ask you something. Vex Nor, when was the last time the krill fought an enemy that used completely different tactics than you? The young krill thought about it. I am not certain. Perhaps centuries ago? Exactly, Jake said. You're trained to fight enemies who think like krill. You practice against opponents who use your own strategies. That's fine when everyone fights the same way. But what happens when someone comes along who plays by different rules? He changed the holographic display to show the 4-minute battle. Everyone in the room had seen it before, but they watched again anyway. It had become famous across the galaxy. Some considered it the most important military engagement in modern history. Watch the formation Admiral Vex Thor used, Jake said. It's excellent. Properly distributed forces, good coverage, strong defensive positioning. Against a conventional enemy, it would have been perfect. But against us, it just meant we had lots of targets close together. Another student, a Mindari with shimmering skin, spoke up. But you used technologies we had never seen. That seems unfair. War isn't fair, Jake said bluntly. That's the first lesson. Your enemy isn't going to check with you about what's allowed. They're going to use everything they have. The question is, are you ready for things you've never seen before? He walked between the desks. Your species have been at peace for 200 years. That's good. Peace is the goal. But peace made you predictable. You all trade technology, so you all have similar weapons. You all train together, so you all use similar tactics. You've become an echo chamber. Kate Brooks entered the classroom. She was now a full instructor at the academy. Mind if I join in, Captain? Answer. Please do, Jake said. Everyone. This is Lieutenant Kate Brooks. She was my tactical officer during the engagement. Kate pulled up her own display. Let me show you something. This is data from the Krill fleet during the battle. Look at their decision-making pattern. Charts and graphs appeared in the air. See how they responded? Every ship followed standard procedures. When one thing didn't work, they moved to the next standard response. Then the next. But they never tried anything truly different. Because our procedures work, Vex Nor said, sounding defensive. Against known enemies, yes, Kate agreed. But adaptation is more important than procedure. Humans don't have procedures for everything. When something doesn't work, we're trained to try something new immediately. Not switch to Plan B, which is just Plan A in a different order. Actually try something completely different. Jake nodded. That's what makes humans dangerous. Not our technology. Our willingness to change. We adapt faster than most species because we've had to. On Earth, if you couldn't adapt, you died. That's been true for our entire evolution. The door opened, and Admiral Vex Thor walked in. Everyone stood immediately, showing respect. The Admiral waved them back down. Continue, he said to Jake. I just wanted to observe. Jake nodded. Admiral, actually, maybe you could help with today's lesson. Can you tell the students what you learned from our engagement? Vex Thor moved to the front of the classroom. He still wore his armor, but now he also wore a small human device on his chest. It was a symbol that he had accepted training from Earth. I learned that experience can be a trap, he said slowly. The Krill have won battles for thousands of years. I assumed this made us superior. Instead, it made us inflexible. We knew how to win using our methods. But we had forgotten how to think. We're fimed. Infimed, he looked at his nephew. Vex Nor, you asked what humans can teach us. They can teach us to question everything. They can teach us that being comfortable is dangerous. They can teach us that survival is more important than tradition. But traditions are what make us krill, Vex Nor protested. Yes, Vex Thor agreed. And traditions are valuable, but not when they get you killed. Captain Morrison's ship defeated my fleet not because they were stronger, but because they thought about the problem differently. They didn't ask, how do we fight like krill? They asked, how do we fight like humans? That's the difference. A message alert sounded on Jake's communication device. He checked it, and his expression became serious. Everyone, we need to cut today's lesson short. There's a situation developing. Within minutes, Jake, Kate, and Admiral Vex Thor were in the command center. Asha Klein was already there, along with Dan Wright and several council members. They were looking at a large holographic star map. "What are we looking at?" Jake asked. "Long-range sensors detected something at the edge of explored space," Dan said. "A fleet of ships. Configuration unknown. Power signatures unlike anything in our database." "How many ships?" Vex Thor asked. "Current count is over 500, Dan said. "And they're heading toward inhabited systems." Senator Quallen's skin showed deep orange, a color of alarm. "This cannot be coincidence. Not 3 months after humanity's demonstration." "Agreed," Asha said. "But we don't know if they're hostile." "Already attempted," Dan said. No response. "They're just coming straight toward us." "Many." Jake studied the map. The unknown fleet was moving with purpose, following a direct route toward the nearest inhabited worlds. "How long until they reach the first populated system?" 4 days, Dan said. "Recommendations?" Quallen asked. Commander Rachel Kim entered the room. She was new to the command staff, having recently been promoted to head the Joint Human Galactic Defense Initiative. "We have a combined fleet, assembled. 300 ships, mix of human and galactic vessels. They've been training together for the past 2 months. 300 against 500, Vex Thor said. "And we don't know anything about their capabilities." "No," Jake said. "But they don't know anything about ours either." "You want to engage them?" Quallen asked. "I want to be ready," Jake said. "We position our fleet between them and the inhabited worlds. We try to communicate. If they attack, we defend. If they're peaceful, we welcome them. And if they're like you?" Vex Thor asked. "If they have technologies we've never seen, then we adapt," Jake said simply. "That's what we've been teaching. Right? Don't stick to what you know. Try something new." Rachel pulled up tactical displays. "The Joint Fleet has been practicing combined tactics. Human ships providing support for galactic vessels. Galactic sensors feeding data to human weapons systems. We're stronger together than separately. This is what we hoped for," Asha said. "A real test of our new cooperation." Over the next few hours, orders went out across the galaxy. The combined fleet began to assemble. Human ships, with their dark hulls, moved alongside the colorful vessels of the galactic species. For the first time, different civilizations were preparing to face an unknown threat together. In the training academy, students watched the preparations. Vexnor stood next to a human cadet named Sam Porter, Ryan's younger brother. "Are you afraid?" Vexnor asked. "A little," Sam admitted. "But that's okay. Fear keeps you alert. Humans always have something wise to say about fear," Vexnor said. Sam laughed. "That's because we're scared a lot. We've had lots of practice dealing with it." On Liberty's Edge, Jake sat in his command chair. Kate was at tactical. Ben was at engineering. Lisa was at weapons. Ryan was at the helm. The same crew that had fought alone 3 months ago. But now they weren't alone. "Captain, we're receiving formation data from the fleet," Amy reported. "Galactic Command is following the patterns we taught them." "Good," Jake said. "Open a channel to all ships." The communication system connected him to 300 vessels. Human faces appeared on some screens. Alien faces on others. All of them looking to him for guidance. "This is Captain Morrison to all ships," he said. "In 4 days, we're going to meet an unknown force. They might be hostile. They might be peaceful. We don't know. But whatever happens, remember what we've learned. We adapt. We work together. We don't rely on old methods when they're not working. We trust each other." He paused. "Humans, Krill, Mindari, Torvan, and all our allies. We're different species from different worlds. But today, we're one fleet. And that makes us stronger than any of us alone." Admiral Vex Thor appeared on another screen. "The captain speaks truth. I fought him 3 months ago. I learned more from that defeat than from 1,000 victories. Now we fight beside him. Let the unknown fleet discover what we discovered, that the galaxy is awake again. The fleet began moving toward the intercept point. 300 ships working together, combining the strengths of multiple civilizations. Humans brought their adaptive tactics and unusual weapons. Krill brought their warrior discipline and heavy ships. Mindari brought their sensor technology and coordination abilities. Torvin brought their speed and maneuverability. 4 days would tell whether it was enough. But for the first time in 200 years, the galaxy wasn't comfortable. It wasn't complacent. It was ready. And that readiness had started with 4 minutes in the neutral zone, when a single human ship reminded the galaxy what it meant to be truly prepared. As Liberty's Edge jumped to faster than light speed, Jake looked at his crew. They were calm and focused. Not because they weren't afraid, but because they knew fear was useful. It kept you sharp. Here we go, he said quietly. Behind them, the combined fleet followed. Ahead of them, the galaxy was about to learn if humanity's lessons had been enough. But whatever happened, they would face it together.